Welcome to our Emergency Radio and Communication series. This video topic is separated into three parts. This segment, Emergency Radio and Communication Part 1, focuses on the different radio frequencies and radio services that are important during an emergency. Emergency Radio and Communication Part 2 will focus on different radios and why some are more expensive than others and what makes these features important. Emergency Radio and Communication Part 3 will introduce the amateur or ham radio and what it takes to acquire a license. We are considering a full training program for the amateur radio in the future. In this video, we want to help explain the need for radios during an emergency. Now, I won't say that I'm an expert on this topic, far from it, but I've spent a great deal of time trying to present this information so that it is clear and useful to the average person. As I learn more on this topic, I may update this video with new or corrected information. During an emergency, information and communication are essential to keep yourself and your family safe. You may need to be alerted to immediate threats such as weather or pandemic crisis or other natural disaster. During the crisis, you may need to tune to different frequencies for updated information or even for information in different areas. So in this video, I will discuss some of the basic frequencies which you might want to understand and a little bit about what to look for in a radio and why these differences might matter. Here is the emphasis of this video. Different radios using different frequencies provide unique features. You can listen locally, or you can actively participate, or you can actually be automatically notified of events and situations. Radio is not just for listening. It is an active form of communication, and that is what we want to explain and present in this. I'll talk about these different groups or bands or radio frequencies and topics. First of all, AM and FM. Pretty much everyone is familiar with AM and FM radio. That's where a majority of our radio comes from. Shortwave, or SW, is seen on some of the radios, especially emergency radios. Amateur or ham radio, which is not really a frequency, it's a topic which includes a wide variety of frequencies. And then the NOAA weather radio. We'll spend some specific time talking about that because it is unique. Now note, I did not include the CB radio in this discussion. I know a lot of people use CB radios, but we will not be using CB radio in this particular video series. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the AM and FM. You may not be as familiar with the value of the shortwave. Shortwave is actually just above the AM band. Shortwave goes through roughly from where the AM band leaves off, 1.7 megahertz, to 30,000 kilohertz, which is the same thing as 30 megahertz. The shortwave spectrum actually includes the AM band, but it is also divided into several other segments. Some of these are used for marine communication, utility stations, and even amateur radio or ham radio. Some of the bands are dedicated to regular broadcasting that is carried to distant parts of the world. You may have heard the Voice of America, or the BBC, or the Voice of Russia. However, there are many privately owned stations that transmit to a vast audience. There are many sources on the internet to help you find shortwave broadcasts. Shortwave is an interesting phenomenon. Shortwave is the only radio medium that can travel long distances. The secret to shortwave reception is in the ionosphere. The ionosphere is the layer of the Earth's atmosphere that is made up of small particles that compact closer during the nighttime. Therefore, it can reflect shortwave signals back to Earth. In general, the lower the shortwave frequency, the better it travels at night. Now, why is that important? Well, the answer is reception. As a matter of fact, many of the shortwave stations broadcast at local nighttime and in early morning. There are several other factors that may contribute to the quality of sound over these long distances. So your reception may come and go depending upon these factors and the strength of the original signal. Now, you may have recognized at various times that you might be listening to an AM radio station, and at night you get other radio signals coming in. This is because some of those other signals are able to actually travel a longer distance than they originally were able to during the daytime, and that's why you get these. However, despite these potential disadvantages, shortwave is still the only medium capable of direct communication from one country to listeners in another country. This is why amateur radio operators are capable of carrying on conversations with operators in other parts of the world. So, with a shortwave radio tuned to the correct frequency, you would be able to hear communication from amateur radio operators during an emergency, as well as pre-published or other published programs. So, what is amateur radio? Up until now, we've only talked about receiving radio communication. And really, that is what this video is mostly about. But amateur radio, also called ham radio, is about people talking person to person. Ham radio gives the user the ability to work together during various emergencies. There are many different operating methods in ham radio. There's a handheld, there are mobile that you might use in a vehicle, and then there's, of course, large base and repeaters. Now, with the use of a repeater, which is a tower or an antenna designed to receive and then amplify and then resend the same signal, it does that immediately. A simple handheld radio can have a communication range of 50 miles or more. With the use of multiple linked repeaters, a handheld can talk across the country and even around the world. However, operating an amateur radio does require a license. We will discuss this in a different video, and we do encourage you to learn more about this and to participate. Now, the last frequency that we want to address in this is called the NOAA frequencies. This is a unique advantage of NOAA frequencies, is that they can proactively alert you to the dangers instead of you being required to seek out the information. This is an important distinction. NOAA weather radio, all hazards NWR, that's a mouthful, you can think of NOAA or NWR, is a nationwide network of radio stations broadcasting a continuous weather and emergency information directly from the nearest National Weather Service office. NWR broadcasts official weather service warnings. They watch forecasts and other hazard information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want to make it clear that NWR focuses on all emergencies, not just weather. One other important note, NWR uses a range of frequencies not commonly found on regular AM/FM radios. So when looking for a radio, if emergency notification is important, then you need to specifically search for an NOAA radio. To review and to summarize, the AM and FM bands, these are the most inexpensive radios, which include both the AM and FM bands, which are most people are familiar with. SW, meaning shortwave, provides the ability to send radio signals over large distances. However, the atmosphere can significantly affect the quality of the signal. A quality radio makes a big difference. Amateur or ham radio uses a segment of the shortwave spectrum. Ham radio operators must be licensed. Using repeaters, ham operators are able to communicate with individuals across the nation and even around the world. NOAA weather radio, all hazards NWR, is an alert system set up in the cooperation with the National Weather Service and the FCC's Emergency Alert System. Using an affordable public safety alert radio, this is the only system designed to actively alert you to all types of public safety broadcasts. Now, we encourage you to also watch our Emergency Radio and Communication Part 2 to learn more about what makes a good quality radio.